Namaste. Welcome back to 365 Days of Healing. It's Greg back again with another video. And today we're talking about awakening. What exactly is it? And why is it given so much importance in the spiritual world and on planet Earth altogether? Awakening is a term which we hear often, don't we? Whether we're at yoga class, maybe we're watching something spiritual on TV or on My Health Yoga TV. And it's something which we feel called to as spiritual beings, to become awakened or to go through the process which we know as awakening. But exactly what does it mean? For some, it means learning. It means opening up to new information and being educated about how to be a human with purpose, a human with compassion, and a human that is, in our world here at My Health, aligned with the yamas and niyamas, living a life of ahimsa, living a life of satya, living a life of that truth, compassion, and kindness. However, awakening has so much more to it, which even I am only just starting to grasp here in the third dimension. To be awakened, first, we must understand that our physical body, as well as our logical mind, is here in the third dimension for a specific purpose, to explore the vast range of emotions, experiences, play, and yes, even trauma that is only available on planet Earth at this time, in this third dimensional reality. So once we realize that that is the role of our body to interact with the environment around us so that we can learn, and our logical mind, first and foremost, is there to control how we evaluate those interactions. Remember, our mind is the central nervous system in this vehicle we call a body, in this vehicle we call the human being. So that's really important to remember first and foremost. So then what we do is we reflect on all of our experiences, the good and the bad, the traumas, the happy experiences, and we carefully evaluate which ones help us to feel as if we are learning, as if we are on track, as if we are going through a process, which again, we know as ascension. So in that way, we might say that awakening is aligned with an up leveling or an upshift in the dimensions that we as a soul being experience, going from the first and second dimension to here, we are in the third dimension, up to the fourth, fifth, and so on. And that process of ascension we could call awakening. However, here in the third dimension, so here on planet Earth, we have our own way of awakening. And it actually comes from planet Earth herself, known as Gaia. Now, if you've watched our healing documentary last year in 2020, it was such a beautiful documentary put together by Carrie Ann Fields and with plenty of beautiful interviews from healers all around the world. There was so much of a focus on Gaia, on the Schumann resonance that comes from Gaia and how Gaia is helping us as human beings at this time. Gaia herself is a planet in the galactic world, in the galactic universe, but she's a planet like no other for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, science has now proven beyond shadow of a doubt that in the center of Gaia, in the center of planet Earth, is an iron crystalline structure, an iron crystal core. So this core itself is one gigantic crystal which emits a frequency outwards. And because this crystalline or crystalline core is of the elemental frequency we know as iron, it has an extremely influential transmission ability on our blood. Our blood in our human body, and in fact, any sentient beings on Earth that carry blood. Now, we know we have flora and fauna, but only the sentient beings, so the beings with the central nervous system, have blood itself. And so the blood itself is actually in a frequency relationship with this iron crystal in the center of the Earth. How they interrelate is quite interesting. Why do we have blood in our body? Of course, it's because it's the messaging system. It takes messages such as hormones through our body. It also helps to create new cells in our rest and digest, when we're asleep. It helps to build our skin cells, digestive cells, our nerve cells. It helps us to heal, grow, and to be reborn. So where does the impotence or the beat of our heart actually come from? Well, the beat of our heart is in synchronicity with the Earth's heartbeat, and her heartbeat is the Schumann resonance. So if we combine these two theories or these two facts, that the center of the Earth is a core of crystal, which has an extremely strong influence on our blood, as well as the resonance of the Earth has its own heartbeat, which gives our own heart its electromagnetic pulse or its beat, which pumps blood around our body, then we have a really interesting scenario, because the Earth herself is going through her own lifespan, just as I am and just as you are. Now, we don't know exactly when the Earth began, and we don't know exactly how long she is going to live for, but we know that we are simply part of that macrocosm, and we are living on Earth. We are in her world, in her galaxy, situated between her surface level and the stratosphere at the utmost of our own atmosphere. And we're there in that frequency known as 7.83 hertz, the frequency of melatonin. So the frequency of the Earth's heartbeat means that we are actually in a perpetual state of rest and digest. We think we're awake when our eyes are open because we can interact in the third dimension. But in fact, we are awake when we sleep, when we tune in to the Earth frequency, the Schumann resonance of 7.83 hertz, which does align somewhat with Manipura, our solar plexus chakra, but essentially it aligns with the fifth dimension, with our third eye chakra, with the rest and digest hormone known as melatonin. So that gives a whole new meaning to the word being awakened, because in fact, when we are awake, we are asleep. And when we are asleep, we are awake. So how can we use that description of the word awakening in order to ascend, to help us on our own spiritual and soul journey? We need to be very careful about how we sleep, why we sleep, and what happens when we sleep. Because in fact, when we sleep is when we have the most capacity for awakening and for ascension. When we're under the hormone melatonin, not when we're in our fight and flight, when we're in our adrenaline hormone, but when we're in our rest and digest, making sure that we sleep regularly and we sleep soundly, making sure that we feel somewhat safe and protected when we sleep, being careful about how we sleep. So we're not crashing at nighttime, but we're sleeping in a very restful way and in a very graceful and peaceful way. But also pay attention to your dream state, because when you are asleep is when you have the capacity to move beyond the third dimension, when you can talk to people who have passed, when you can create infinite possibility in your life and abundance with your imagination, when you can truly tune in to your fifth dimensional capacity, to your pineal gland. So I hope this has helped perhaps awaken a new understanding of your capacity to awaken here in the third dimension. And don't worry if some of the lingo and some of the language I use seems a little bit foreign, because the beautiful thing about being truly awakened is you don't need to understand it in the logical mind, but just let that information come through, settle in you. And tonight, right before you go to sleep, do a meditation and say to yourself, I'm excited to go into my state of rest and to play with my awakened state while I sleep. I look forward to seeing you again on 365 Days of Healing. Namaste.